Hi again, everybody. We're going to get into Chapter 2 now, so I'm going to run through some PowerPoint slides that deal with Chapter 2 in your textbook, talking about getting to the core of class offerings. So this really focuses on ways in which group fitness classes are usually structured to enhance participants' health-related components of fitness. We try to center our workout around enhancing those particular health-related areas. There's no single class structure that's appropriate for every type of group fitness class. We have a lot of options when it comes to planning and implementing each of our classes, but we have to be aware of just general formatting practices so we can ensure that we have a safe environment and a good experience for everybody in our class. So in this particular chapter, we're going to look at the differences between two methods of teaching, pre-choreographed and then freestyle. We'll look at the different components of health-related components of fitness and describe them and look at the different guidelines as far as frequency, intensity, duration, things like that. And we'll talk a little bit about a few different principles of training. So most of our group fitness classes are appropriate for individuals with various fitness skills and abilities, as long as us, the group fitness instructor, are capable of student-centered instruction. Okay, so student-centered instruction. So we want to be able to provide modifications throughout the entire class experience so our class is inclusive for everyone. So for example, you might get someone who is highly fit, who exercises regularly, who could basically come in and teach your class because they come so much. Versus you might have another person come in that has never taken this class before in their life. They're just new to an exercise program. They really haven't exercised a lot in the past, so this is all new for them. So as a group fitness instructor, we need to be inclusive and provide a class, a workout that is going to give that new individual a good workout, but not injure them or aggravate any conditions that they might have, but make them feel like, hey, I can actually do this, but also include that person who is highly skilled and who really, is a regular exerciser. So we need to be able to provide appropriate progressions, ways that we can make different exercises harder for those highly skilled folks and highly people who are regular exercisers, and those regressions for those newbies and those folks that really are new to exercise and are less fit. So that's probably one of the hardest things, is to be able to not only cue your different movements in the class, but also while you're doing those movements, provide those progressions and regressions so everyone in your class can feel included in your workout, and then they can make the choice at which way they want to perform that particular exercise. So the two different choreographic methods that we tend to see in group fitness is the freestyle and then the pre-choreographed. So freestyle is basically the instructor kind of makes up their own workouts or their own classes and their lesson plans for that class. There's no set structure as far as you need to do this exercise before that exercise, and this song has a certain, choreographed method that goes along with it. So it's kind of a freestyle. The instructor has a little more freedom to, make their classes different each and every week. Whereas pre-choreographed classes are things like Zumba, or Les Mills has a lot of different like body pump and types of classes like that, where it's all pre-choreographed. They send you the choreography, they send you the playlist, and you basically just teach their choreography, and it remains the same for a certain period of time, and then they upgrade it and they change it and they send that out to you. So obviously there's a cost associated with that. If you want to be an instructor for, say, Zumba, you have to pay those fees to get the choreographed pieces and to get the music that goes along with it. So, some instructors prefer that approach because they don't want to choreograph their own music and songs, and so they just decide to use something that's already predetermined and they just deliver it, the content. Whereas freestyle, we have to put a little more thought into it and develop our own choreography, set up our own playlists and things like that. So depending on the instructor, there's a couple different ways we can go about it. So as far as different components of a class, first of all, we have that warm-up. Okay, that's the very beginning of the workout and kind of sometimes one of the most important parts of the workout. It's designed to increase your internal body temperature. There's increased blood flow going to those skeletal muscles during this particular period of time. So, you know, in the warm-ups, we always want to include dynamic movement. Dynamic means movement involved. Okay, so moving through a full range of motion type of movements instead of static, which is still, right? Static is no movement involved. So generally in the warm-up, we like to include dynamic, flexibility types of movements that move those joints through a full range of motion. So for example, maybe doing an arm circle, right? Circling those arms maybe 10 times, you know, backwards, 10 times forward. That's a dynamic flexibility movement where you're moving that shoulder joint through a full range of motion, but it's also getting that joint loose and warm for class. Also, we tend to want to include rehearsal type movements. So if you have a move that's going to come in the conditioning segment of your class that you want to kind of rehearse and preview to your class participants prior to starting the actual condition phase of the workout, you can do rehearsal types of movements. So for example, say you're teaching a kickboxing class and you want to do a snap kick. We obviously don't want to do that right away in the warm-up because we can definitely pull a muscle by doing something like that without warming up appropriately. So instead, maybe doing like a straight-legged kick or sometimes those toy soldiers that people like to do in warm-ups. Those are great ways to stretch the glutes and the hamstrings, but prepare them for that snap kick and give them a feel for what, you know, I'm going to be lifting my leg up this way when I do the snap kick. So they're dynamic, full range of motion exercises. So most warm-ups are, like I said, dynamic flexibility movements. Excuse me. Extended warm-ups are going to be needed for people like older adults, if you're in extreme environmental temperatures, really hot, you know, really cold, and then for some special populations. So most warm-ups are generally anywhere from maybe 3 to 5 minutes in length, but sometimes those different groups or those special populations require a lengthy warm-up prior to starting the conditioning phase of class. Excuse me. So the conditioning segment of the class is designed to promote independence and responsibility, self-responsibility. So again, this is important for us to, during this phase of the class, we're getting our heart rate up, but we're also showing them progressions and regressions so they can make that decision on their own and decide, okay, this is the best way I need to do this exercise for me and my current fitness level. You know, so we can give them those tools and tell them ways that they can make it easier or harder, but leave it up to them, you know, to make that choice as far as what is good for them. And also during that conditioning segment of class, we want to monitor intensity. So, you know, simple things like a talk test, you know, ask questions. If they can talk to you, that's great. We don't want somebody to be so winded that they can't even get out a couple words. You could take exercise heart rates. You could do ratings of perceived exertion. You know, there's different ways that we can monitor intensities, or even simply, you know, asking people, hey, how are we doing? Give me a thumbs up if you're feeling good. You know, if you see a lot of thumbs down, that maybe is a sign that you are definitely pushing them a little too hard. The post-conditioning and the cool-down segment of the class is where we can sit back and do some of those static stretches. And a static stretch is where we sit and hold that stretch for an extended period of time. So for this, we can also include relaxation or visualization or breathing techniques during this particular segment of the class. We should do at least 1 rep of each stretch for all the major muscle groups. Try to hold them for at least, you know, maybe 15 to 30 seconds. Try to avoid ballistic stretching though. We don't want to bounce, we don't want to jerk. during this segment. It's a slow controlled stretch, and you're going to hold it. If you want to refer to page 25 in your textbook, you can see some sample cool down stretches for a cycling class that could be included in your class plan. So as a group fitness instructor, we should definitely model average flexibility, so our participants don't try to imitate our form that they cannot safely match. So I know, they're going to want to do what you're doing. So I always try to stress, try to provide maybe that middle of the road form of the movement. Don't overdo it and go at the high end, because they're going to try to do that higher end of the movement, or the more intense version of the movement, or, that super, that person who's super duper flexible, they want to try to do those types of things. But not everybody in your class can, touch their toes. So we want to average or model average flexibility. So, those participants think, okay, I can do this. But if they try to do something that's beyond their limits, that's when injury can occur. And we don't want our participants to injure themselves. We want them to have fun and enjoy your class and want to keep coming back to your class. So the health-related components of fitness, there are actually 5, and these are considered more important to the general health in the general population than skill-related components of fitness. So most exercise programs really focus on the health-related, because the general population, which is most of us, really need to work on these areas, because at some point they will impact our health in some way, shape, or form if we do not. So you can see the definitions of each health-related component of fitness are listed here. So as far as all 5 go, the most important is cardiorespiratory endurance. So the ability of your circulatory system and your respiratory system to supply oxygen to your working muscles during sustained physical activity. So if we're going to do anything at all, doing aerobic exercise is really the most important thing on a weekly basis. Then you have muscle strength and endurance. I kind of put those 2 under that umbrella of muscle fitness. So we want to work on improving strength and endurance, obviously, multiple times throughout the week. And of course, flexibility, trying to work on the range of motion at your joint. And then body composition, which is the amount of fat mass we have and fat-free mass that we have in our body. So basically, if we work on all of the above, these 4, we will, in some way, shape, or form, improve our body composition. Skill-related components of fitness, on the other hand, are things like agility, coordination, balance, power, reaction time, and speed. So those individuals who perform these types of exercises have already achieved a certain level of conditioning through activities focused on health-related components of fitness. So many athletes and those individuals who are very fit and very active might work on, in addition to the health-related areas, work on these skills as well, so they can better enhance their performance in maybe the events that they're competing in, or the sports that they're playing in, or things of that nature. So as far as aerobic exercise, the American Council, or the American College of Sports Medicine, which is ACSM, American College of Sports Medicine, does have some basic recommendations. So when we look at cardiorespiratory endurance, the recommendation is for FIT, for frequency. F stands for frequency. Roughly doing at least 5 days a week for healthy adults. And if you're choosing vigorous forms of exercise, you want to try to at least do 3 days a week or more of vigorous exercise. If you're combining vigorous exercise and moderate intensity exercise together in your programming over the course of the week, you can limit it to just the 3 to 5 days a week. So as far as your frequency goes, anywhere from 3 to 5 days a week, depending on the intensity level of your exercise, and then moderate or vigorous would be the intensity. The time, how long should you do aerobic exercise for? Well, the recommendation for healthy adults is 30 to 60 minutes for moderate or even vigorous per week, and then either 20 to 60 minutes if you're choosing to do just vigorous intensity exercise. As far as muscular strength, You can see, again, the recommendation, the FIT principle recommendation for healthy adults is to perform an exercise for each major muscle group at least 2 to 3 days per week. So there's your frequency. As far as your intensity and time, you're doing roughly 2 to 4 sets of 8 to 12 reps per exercise, and that's going to help improve strength and even power. If you're choosing to do or work with an older adult population, the recommendation is more like 10 to 15 reps for muscle strength. If you're focusing strictly on muscle endurance, the repetitions you can see are a little bit higher, 15 to 20 reps per exercise or per set for muscular endurance. So, and as far as the intensity goes, how much weight you should be lifting, that really is based on that person's prior experience with weight training and even their individual goals. So depending on what their goal is, if they're choosing to increase muscle strength, then obviously the load needs to be higher. They need to be lifting heavier weights. A few different principles of training that I want to just briefly talk about are specificity, progressive overload, and reversibility. So first of all, definitely looking at specificity, we know that physiological changes are highly specific to the types of activities performed. So I always say train for your desired goal, right? So if I want to run the Boston Marathon, I'm going to be doing a lot of long, slow distance, types of runs on a daily or weekly basis, right? So I'm training to be able to run for a long period of time and continue to run at a certain speed for that long period of time by doing those types of runs every single day. So we want to train for that desired result. So whatever that desired result is, we need to make our training specific to what that goal is or that desired result. Progressive overload is gradually and methodically increasing demands placed on your body. So obviously, if I start by lifting 5-pound dumbbells in a class and I continue to lift 5-pound dumbbells for the duration of, the next 6 months, I'm not going to see any physiological changes. But maybe I start with 5-pound dumbbells and then after a couple weeks I increase gradually to maybe 6, 7, 8-pound dumbbells, and then after a few weeks I might progress again to 10-pound dumbbells, or I might change the amount of reps that I do, and maybe I start with 15 reps, but then I might decrease it down to 12 as the weight increases. So we can progressively overload and manipulate those training variables like how much weight we're lifting, the duration, how many reps we're doing, things like that, your rest period in between your sets. Those are all things that we can manipulate and apply this progressive overload. And when you do that, you will start to see more physiological changes in your body. And then lastly, reversibility declines in fitness as a result of lack of physical activity. And this occurs within months. So complete lack of activity, like during periods of immobility due to maybe bed rest or sickness, can cause a dramatic loss in strength and bone mass. So when you start back, you cannot start back where you left off, right? We have to gradually progress back to where we left off. So some key principles of training are very important to think about, especially as a personal trainer and even as a group fitness instructor when we're designing our lesson plans for our classes. Now, when we meet in class, I have a couple labs that we're going to actually be performing. So I have included these 2 labs under the week 1 module in our course site. So what I want you to do is print off each of these 2 labs, and then I'd like you to write down your answers. Each lab is pretty self-explanatory, and once you print it out, you can read through it. And then jot down your answers and kind of practice it a little bit at home, because when we meet face-to-face in class, you're going to be in the spotlight. You are the one who is going to be giving your introduction. You're going to maybe lead us through, some of your warm-up that you've designed, cool down, and then even a closing statement. So I want you to put yourself in that position of actually having to do these things in front of a group of people. So that's your homework. You're going to want to make sure that you print those off. start jotting down some possible answers and things that you would like to deliver when you come to class, and be prepared to do so. Have a great day.